Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and John Cass in for Amy J. JohnCassNews.com. That's where you find his writings and the writings of his contributors and his Chicago Way podcast and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Like a cup of good common sense, Midwestern style.
Yeah. There you go. Bibi, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he took to Fox and Friends over the weekend to respond to the comments made by Pagliacci Schumer on the Senate floor last week that we discussed. Schumer, the upshot is, calling for new elections in Israel because Bibi needs to go because I guess the claim is that he and other unnamed parties within his administration are bigots. And, they haven't done a good enough job at trying to limit civilian casualties as they prosecute the war against Hamas.
They're bigots because they're trying to... Bibi is what? He's Jewish and he's trying to protect his state from attack? Yeah.
Yeah, well, as we know, I mean, this is just Schumer playing domestic politics and pandering to, I don't know, say a constituency in Dearborn, Michigan that could be that could cost Biden Michigan if they're not careful. I think that's what the calculus is. It has nothing to do with Israel's interests, peace in the Middle East, eradicating terrorism. It has everything to do with domestic politics. And Bibi sort of saw through that, responding thusly.
Joe Biden says he liked the speech and also said your policies are hurting Israel more than helping Israel. Your response to Chuck Schumer and the president?
I think Schumer's statements are wholly inappropriate. I think we're not a banana republic. The people of Israel will choose when they'll have elections, who they elect, and it's not something that will be foisted upon us. It's wrong to try to replace the elected leaders of a sister democracy and a staunch American ally at any time, but especially during the time of war. Just imagine that after 9/11, and when you're in the midst of fighting al-Qaeda and winning, people will say, oh, well, the right thing, some Israeli would say, oh, the right thing to do is now to have new elections in America or have President Bush resign. It's inappropriate, shouldn't have been said. It's wrong. As far as my considerations, they're not for my personal survival. They are for the survival of the Jewish state, and that requires pursuing the war. It's something that my government enjoys the support of the overwhelming majority of Israelis. And let me tell you something, not only the majority of Israelis, but the majority of the American people.
For more on this, please be joined by Stephen Bucci, who served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official. He is a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
It is always my pleasure to be on the show.
So was Bibi's response on Mark?
Well, I thought it was a little tepid, frankly. Right. If I had been in his place, I don't think I would have maintained quite that level of professionalism that he did. I would have told Chuck Schumer where to stuff it. That last time I checked, he wasn't a voter in the nation of Israel, so his opinion about who governs in Israel is worth a cup of warm spit. So, no, Chuck, we don't really care about your opinion. I'm not even sure Chuck's still a Jew at this point. As he talks that way, it's absurd. I mean, if you're worried about election interference in America, then where do you get off trying to dictate to another democracy how they should decide their policy or who should be the leader? Last time I checked, America didn't get to dictate to the rest of the world who sits in the head seat of a government.
How difficult does it make the job of a warfighter to have domestic politics and hand-wringing like Schumer? Dan believes Schumer, and I agree with him, is undercutting Israel to appease Michigan votes. How difficult is it for the warfighter in the position of risking their lives to be out there and having to deal with this stuff?
Oh, it complicates it incredibly. It just complicates. There is a slice of Israeli politics who don't agree with what the government is doing. And they're a democracy. They do have differing opinions across the political spectrum. So for somebody like Schumer to pander to that small slice of the Israeli electorate, when you're right, it's exactly based on pandering to a critical slice, according to their evaluation there in the American Democratic Party. To pander to that small slice of radical left people, predominantly, it's not just in the Dearborn community in Michigan. There's pockets of it in other places as well. Some of them not Muslim or Arab. They're just radical left Americans who just really hate Israel. But it is a tiny minority compared to most of the American electorate. So to pander that way and undercut an ally when they're fighting a war to
Survival.
try and eke out a little bit more domestic voting is wrong.
So where does the campaign against Hamas stand? You know, there's been this back and forth with Bibi sort of thumbing his nose at the Americans and others who've called for him not to invade Rafah. And him basically saying, look, we have to go into Rafah if we're going to come close to eradicating Hamas. And so that could be the last piece of it even. So where does that all stand?
Well, I think we're right on the edge. Israel is very close to, I don't know if we could really say eradicating Hamas, but making Hamas so weak that they're a non-player, which is what we all hope will happen. But to suddenly pull the rug out from under them and say, oh, we're going to condition our support or we're going to change our position if you don't suddenly back off at this last minute. Look, this is an administration that it just came out this weekend, was having secret meetings with Iran to put more pressure on Israel to cut off this attack. At the same time, they're releasing to Iran another $10 billion in aid. Their priorities are screwed up. The American administration's priorities are screwed up, and it's going to hurt Israel in their effort to make their own people safe. I don't think that will dissuade Bibi from doing what he needs to do, but it's sure going to make it harder for him. And this is not what an ally does. An ally stands with the people that are on their side that have stood with us unconditionally, and now suddenly we're playing politics with them. It is really a low blow, in my opinion.
There's been a change in the mission statement of the United States Army. The old mission statement read, to build, educate, train, and inspire the Corps of Cadets to be commissioned leaders of character, committed to duty, honor, country, and ready for a lifetime of service to the Army and nation. The new mission statement removes the MacArthur troika there of duty, honor, and country. Duty, honor, country replaced with Army values. Duty, honor, country is sort of a seminal speech in the history of the country and certainly the armed forces, certainly the United States Army. And it seems to be like the three sort of characteristics, values that you would think of when you think of our armed services. But there's a desire to make those more generic, just put them all under the heading of Army values, whatever Army values are. Let's not be explicit about it. How do you react to that?
Well, first of all, I mean, General MacArthur's speech did not develop those three. Those three were the motto of the military academy when General MacArthur was a cadet. So it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And he was exemplifying it at the end of his career. He was still holding that as the highest depiction of the values that we are supposed to live by, the creed that a graduate of the military academy is supposed to live by, to suddenly put them in. Look, the Army values are fine, but there's something that is the calling of everybody that joins the United States Army, everybody that enlists, from the youngest private to the most senior officer. But to remove the duty, honor, country from the mission statement of the academy, I'm sorry, the academy's a little different. It's not the entire Army doesn't go to the United States Military Academy. It's selected people. It's a small slice of our officer corps. So should there be a little more intellectual depiction of the things that motivate and give direction to those officers? Should it be a little different than the values of the whole Army? Yeah, it should. It should be higher. And we all thought duty, honor, country was the epitome of that. The present leadership of the Army is being driven by, the woke nonsense that's causing them to have a enlistment crisis. They can't get people to join because good American mothers and fathers don't want to send their sons and daughters to an organization that is confused about what you call people and that spends as much time giving classes on, debunked critical race theory as it does training them how to fight.
Well, that's the thing. It's not about Army values. It's about the removal of from the West Point credo. It's about the removal of duty, honor, country, and what we're supposed to understand about what West Point is with that decision. What does that tell us about what has become of that institution?
What it tells you is that the leadership has been either pushed into or even worse, believes themselves that we don't have to have anything special for the military academy. We just need to use what we use for everybody else. Back to the common denominator. It's not a bad denominator, but it is the lowest common denominator of values for everyone who joins the Army. And the creed of the military academy should be something higher. Duty, honor, country exemplified that. And the leadership saying, "Oh no, it's nothing different. It's really the same thing." No, I'm sorry, it's not, General. You're wrong, Secretary of the Army. Get a life and look at the people you're leading. Perhaps ask them before you make the change.
They're asking these young men to risk their lives. So if you're risking your lives for what? To make fries at McDonald's? Is that what it is? Like nothing more than that? No.
Yeah, and no, you're absolutely right. It's not just that. It's not the lowest common denominator. The men and women who graduate from the military academy have accepted a higher calling than the citizens in general, certainly, but from the average soldier as well.
Yes.
Doesn't mean they're better, but they have chosen a different and I believe a higher path. And taking this creed away from them, it's a crappy leadership, frankly.
Weaklings.
Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official, a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen Bucci, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks,
Very
Colonel.
good. And Steve Bucci, join us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. It's a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
I'm Frank Vance, co-owner of Egan Vance Insurance Agency on Chicago's Northwest Side and a customer of Signature Bank. In my line of work, we pride ourselves on being there for our clients when they need it the most, and we recognize when someone does the same for us. As Egan Vance was expanding, we wanted to buy a much sought-after building in the neighborhood. We couldn't waste any time. I called Signature Bank, and that was all it took. I didn't have to talk to multiple people in siloed departments with multiple forms to fill out. One call did it all. As the one who was always looking out for my clients, it was a great change to know that my bank, Signature Bank, was looking out for me.
Signature Bank is looking for their next success story. To learn more about turning your business vision into reality, visit signaturebank.bank. Signature Bank, helping local businesses succeed. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.